So I'm on with this client, and we're I'd say about 20-30 minutes into doing the standard work. We meet every couple of weeks. This particular person, she likes to meet every couple of weeks and dig through some shit, so we're talking, and she's had a little bit of stumble in her process, because I remember a couple weeks ago she was thrilled. She was like, oh, this is amazing, this is working a lot faster than I thought. And usually when someone is at that stage where shit is amazing and working a lot faster than they thought, you don't really want to pop their bubble and say, just wait. It's not so much beginner's luck, but the initial momentum. And when you first start doing like transformation work, there's a period where when you break through that first mental block, it's exhilarating, because you're like, holy shit, I can do this. And when you find yourself actually gaining momentum and reaching what feels like, to use the metaphor, cruising altitude, it's super empowering. It's like, holy shit, I can do this. And that feels good. And that feels sustainable. To the point where we get on is it a hedonic treadmill or hedonistic treadmill? I like the sound of hedonistic treadmill, but I feel like that's not it. So until we get on the hedonic treadmill, where we get comfortable with our progress, so that it's almost like, not almost like, it's like we take it for granted. Which is bad, because it's not stuck in there as much as we think it is. You might be at your cruising altitude, but it's not what you call your set point. It's not where you live. So, and it's not fully automatic. That way of being, you're still doing some processing. You've learned to manage a lot of the stuff around you that used to knock you over. So you're not getting knocked over as much. And often, if I'm thinking about the first crisis, remember, lowercase c crisis, the first crisis is usually that when you've had a stretch of success with this person, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, where a lot of her triggers, she'd managed to sidestep them, manage them, etc. And after that first crisis, when you have that first crisis after that period of success, it's like, holy shit, you find yourself on your back again. On your back again, looking up, and your demons surrounding you, so to speak. Rude awakening. And what sucks about it is that in that moment, your brain flashes back to that state where, holy shit, I'm back here again. And there's always that initial panic. How the hell do I get up from here? How do I get out of this situation? The problem with that is, the challenge is that because you've been up for a while, it's challenging. I already used that word, but the challenge is, what makes it challenging is that if you've been up for a while, things have been going okay. There's a complacency. There's really the skills that you may have learned to cope, to recover, a lot of the stuff that we would label as resilience, we kind of tend to put on the back burner. That we used to be here, and we learned how to get out of here at one point, and it may be, honestly, that you got out of there by splashing around, like an electrocuted toddler. And as I think about it, maybe an electrocuted toddler doesn't move. So anyway, you find that you don't necessarily remember how you got out of there, because it's not really something you want to practice. You don't want to be like, okay, let me throw myself in a shitty situation so that next time I'm in a shitty situation, I'll feel confident getting out. But her main thing was, holy shit, I'm back here, I failed, etc. I can't believe it. And there's a little bit of the I let you down. First of all, y'all never let me down, because the shit that I've been through and the way that I had to battle my way out of it, it's dark enough down there that I know that from down there, up is down, left is where the fuck am I? So there's really no letting me down. And plus, that's not why you hire me. You don't hire me to sit here and judge. My main job, honestly, is to understand and to have a perspective and to be able to be in that space with you with less panic, without panic, and help you kind of ground yourself in where you are to the point where you might be able to, not you might be able, I know you will, be able to find the smallest step that you could possibly take to shift things and to prove to yourself that you can do something about it. And that's where the difference happens. The difference is in realizing that even when you're feeling disempowered, you're not powerless. You are capable. That shift in frame, it changes everything, because then you go out of this fight-flight mode into an intentional, volitional, out of a learned helplessness. In depression, we call it behavioral activation, but I won't get into that, because it's, when you get down to the math of it, it's like you can zoom in and make such a tiny change, and in that split second, whether the change is for better or for worse, that's the important part. Even if you make a change and it fucks everything up, it changed stuff. You were able to actuate a change, and that lets you know that, hey, if I could do this and I see it outside in the world, I have some sort of causal power on this thing. What if I do the opposite of that? Or what if I do something different? Hey, that too may work. And that moves you away from the learned helplessness. Yeah. But I want to go back to like the main anchoring point. Her question for me was, when she was feeling like flat on her back after weeks of success, amazing success, and she was feeling like a new her, she was like, I want to do it how you did it. And it made me realize, I'm like, shit, the way I did it took till I was 40 something. You don't want to do it how I did it, because the way I did it involved a lot of dropping down, and each of us has to do our own dropping down so we can learn to recognize when to get up. But the fastest path, the way that I did it, is like to be real with yourself as soon as possible. And part of that real is realizing that it's hard as shit to be real with yourself. That's part one. Part two is realizing that you don't really know when you're being real with yourself. I know there's a lot of reals in a sentence, but there's a point there. So our brain works heavily on self-deception, works on a bunch of biases. You need to feel okay with yourself. And you'll go through a lot of contortions, bending your reality and bending your story of self to feel okay, to like soothe some of that cognitive dissonance. And that's adaptive, except for when it isn't. So ultimately, one of the last things that you want to hear when you're flat on your back and you're paying someone to help you out of it is you've got to figure this out on your own. But the main goal and the main job of someone in my position, when I'm, I don't even like the word coach, but when I'm coaching someone through a process, their process, is to let them know that it's their process. You're the scientist, you're the detective. I can't see shit. I'm just some dude sitting across from you across a Zoom, probably hours away by car, listening. I'm not there with you moment to moment. It's your responsibility. It's entirely your responsibility. You got yourself there. So on some level, there's a set of things that you've watched yourself do all day, every day, for years, that in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't like this one. Every time I do this, I get this. And so the whole premise of our conversation is usually not, oh, I have a solution, but, oh, if you're honest with yourself in like, to use the bullshit line that sometimes, radical honesty, radical self-transparency, radical acceptance, all that. It just means, honestly, to me, hold your nuts and let the world hit you with the truth of who you are. Look in the mirror without the distortion. to the best of your ability. And realize that that fucker's distorted anyway. So based on that, the task becomes taking responsibility for your distortion. Yeah, because the thing that's most in the way is the way that you perceive your outside reality. If you imagine your brain is in some vat somewhere in some other dimension, this is a metaphor, don't run with it too much. Your brain is somewhere in a vat in another dimension. Your job then becomes, how do I figure out what's out here? And how do I take steps with enough confidence so that I'm not letting what's out here dictate what I believe is in here? Okay, let me see if I can explain that. You've got two processes going on. You got shit you're putting out and shit you're taking in. And you can get down to Piaget, the dude with like the kids would cover their eyes, and I hope that's the right one. They would cover their eyes and think that they disappear because they cover their eyes because of their perspective, because of their perception as well. You got to know that you're doing that on some level as an adult right now, all the time. So, and you can't stop because you're doing the best you can with the lens you have, with the tools you have, with the things that when you look around you believe you can do. And based on that, the world is pushing against you. It's creating your reality as you're trying to kind of grab the pen with a shaky hand and write your version of it. As you're doing that, more and more, you're getting these little moments where you have these bursts of creativity. If you imagine it as working through the writer's block of your personal narrative, you'll jot some shit down and you're like, yeah, I like that. Let me hold on to that. Meanwhile, reality is hitting you with stuff that says, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's arrogant. That's delusional. But you have to, not but, and, it's a but. But even as reality is hitting you with this stuff, yet you have to keep writing. You got to keep writing. And the writing has to be the boldest version of you, so that when you look at it, you're not looking down at something you wrote that's minimizing you. You don't want to be writing something where you're settling because of the fear, because of the power with which reality is hitting you, knocking you back into this victim, disempowered position where your last line will be, it could have been different if I had chosen to write more boldly, if I had taken more risks, if I had been willing to deal with, or capable, sometimes capable, to deal with bigger disappointments, if I'd been willing to love more, to risk more, to laugh more, to be more vulnerable, to get clear on what I wanted, overall, to be more honest with yourself, to be more lucid, to be more connected to the environment, to be more receptive and connected to what's coming in, because it floods in. The overwhelm happens when a lot of the stuff that really you could have considered irrelevant to you, you let hit you more than it should have. Then the question becomes, when you're knocked back, and in that moment, you've been defeated. There's no niceness about it. You could do all there is no failure face the fear and rise and fuck that. Face everything. It's hard when you're on your back. It's hard when you've been on your back for hours, days, weeks, months, as long as you can remember. Sometimes there's some shit that, like, since you've been a child, you've been trying to break away from. What if you grew up in poverty and now you're trying to be prosperous, to use the word that like has been abused and exploited. What if you're trying to get out of this situation? You don't even know what the other situation is like, but it's not the shit you went through. So, you don't want to go back to that shit. Yet at the same time, you don't even really know what it is about this new world, this new version of you in this new context that is is real, is sustainable, is honestly, is you, is the true story. How much of what you're writing in this journal of personal narrative is bullshit? How much of it is you pretending? How much of it is spiritual bypassing? How much of it is giving up your values as the cost for what you have? A lot of us found that we, the metaphor that's been used to death, which I thought was brilliant when I first saw it, is a lot of us leaned our ladder against the wrong house. And we got up so high that, switching ladders, and you've been climbing so long that if you try to come back down the ladder to do a more authentic climb, you realize that the climb ain't gonna come as naturally. You're not gonna have that passion, that fire, that youth, that flexibility. You're not just climbing alone. You're climbing with kids, a mortgage, car payments, bad knee, bad back, a sense of entitlement, a cynical outlook on mankind, whatever, all that shit. So it's not the same climb, and the sunk cost is ridiculous. And really, honestly, you don't know how much more climbing energy you have in you. Because the me that put up with the shit that it took to get into med school, get through med school, get through residency, just build this business, a lot of that shit was dumb, naive, overly optimistic. I've become a lot more cautious in my optimism, become more realistic and pragmatic, become less inclined to do some shit that, will scar my kids to have seen. I've seen dark shit. Returning to the question of how did I do it, it was the more I was willing to let that shit in, the more I was able to experience me in that context. Different versions of me, deeper, more connected, more meaningful versions of me. Viktor Frankl type shit. Like, my man came through the concentration camp and came out with logos therapy. That's shit. Holy shit. What are you going to come out with? And, what will it be that was worth writing down to remind yourself, this is how I do it. This is how I climb out, So, long story less long, my answer to her was, hold your nuts. I was like, hold your nuts. You gotta, the best way I could explain it is this story that I read. And actually, it's a known story. It's The Alchemist. A lot of The Alchemist I've forgotten. I was really mad at whoever suggested I read it because the shit was boring, like tedious. It was tedious, painful, and but then every once in a while, plus they suggested I read that in a depression. I was depressed as shit reading that dark, miserable shit. There's a weird thing in depression where you don't feel like reading no happy shit. You don't want to read about someone's life being better or happy or look up or any of that toxic positivity because it's hork. It's vomit inducing. What is, however, easier to take in is other people suffering, just to let you know that other people have been here and survived. Even the ones that haven't survived, like when they decided to tap out, they made peace with it. Not all of them. But anyway, in The Alchemist is this story about 2 drops of oil. The main guy, I assume he was the alchemist, he's wandering, and I don't know how he got to the wizard's mansion, palace, whatever. So he gets there, and there's this big gala, big party going on. And he gets there, and he meets the wizard. And the wizard is like, yeah, have a good time. Enjoy. Have a blast. But wait, before you go. It's like, oh, shit. What? So the wizard's like, before you go, I'm going to give you these 2 drops of oil, black drop and clear drop, in this spoon. I was like, okay, what the fuck? So I'll put these 2 drops of oil on the spoon. Don't spill them, just enjoy the view. You know, the guy walked around, he saw shit from all around the world. Magic carpets, I don't know, unicorns, and just magical shit that would impress you, I guess. Probably an iPhone or some shit like that. AI. I'm being ridiculous, but that's nothing new. But anyway, so he saw these amazing things, and then later on he bumped into a wizard. And in my butchered version of the story, the wizard's like, hey, how you liking the place? And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is mind-blowing. And the wizard's like, oh, okay, good. What's your favorite thing? And he's like, I think I watched some guy teleport over there or something. 1 minute he was here, and he, you know, did the I Dream of Genie thing, and next thing you know, I couldn't find him, and he was over there, like way far away, like, hey, I'm over here. Whoa, blew my mind. Some shit like that. I'm, you know, I'm optimizing this story for modern delivery. So, dude's like, oh man, yeah, that's pretty cool. Anything else? And you know, he told him some other stuff he'd seen, and you know, he got all excited. He was winded, waving his hand. And my man said, hey, watching him wave his hands, where them 2 drops of oil? and he was like, two what? Where's the spoon? He's like, oh, you know, he's got Matrix with it. There is no spoon, shit. And so the guy was like, okay. Now I want you to, do you remember what I asked you when you got here? I requested that you know, take this spoon and these 2 drops of oil and enjoy yourself, but keep an eye on the 2 drops of oil. And the guy was like, shit. And you know, wizard being a wizard, he like snapped and shit, and a couple snaps in, and another spoon appeared. He's like, oh, I'll be damn, that's my man keep a rack of spoons around. So he takes the spoon, and he's like, okay, let's try this again. Puts a couple of drops of oil in, drop of black oil, drop of clear oil. And he's like, okay, now I need you to walk around here, look at the wonders, the marvels, you know, the unicorns are doing gymnastics. Next guy you come across, teleport, and check your wallet next time because he likes to teleport people shit. So keep your eye on the 2 drops of oil. And so the alchemist goes around walking again, and he wanders, and he keeps an eye on the drop of oil, and he's like, oh, this time I'm gonna keep dropping, you know, clown me and be snapping and shit and having spoons and oil and shit up here out of nowhere. That shit creepy and weird. Not gonna happen again. So, I don't know, it's been an hour and a half. It's weird to tell time in a wizard's palace where people are teleporting. And so he runs into a wizard out of nowhere. Fucker be showing up out of nowhere. So the wizard's like, hey, I see you got your 2 drops of oil. He's like, yeah, I do. He's like, what'd you see? And dude was like, huh? And he's like, what did you see? And dude was like, yeah, I got my 2 drops of oil though. And the wizard was like, okay, so that's the whole lesson. Like literally, that you can stop the story right there, and the message ultimately being, oh shit, if I tell you the message, then I'm ruining it for you. That's the punchline. You know, when my client came to me, you know, I have to give her the truncated story. You know, it's just like a perpetual cliffhanger. I don't have your answer. The best that I could do is give you a little bit of my story and tell you how I got where I got. That, you know, I kept fucking up and shit kept going bad, and I kept reconnecting to why I was doing it, and I kept getting back up, and shit kept getting bad. I would figure out some tools that worked, and then I'd forget to use them shits, and I'd look and I'd be back in the same situation again. Shout out to Dr. Maisha for helping me out, and a lot of other people played a significant role, but Maya in particular has shared this story, autobiography, in 5 short chapters. Look it up. It talks a lot about the whole finding yourself in the same shit over and over again, and eventually taking responsibility. But that's my job. That's literally what I do. You know, it's you know, all I can do. If I hand you my answer, and leads you to believe that that's the right way, then I've done you a great disservice, because there's no way in hell I would subject someone to my way, because I was like, what, 40 something before my way actually worked in a way that, I got peace. I'm in a place of peace. I'm in a place of, shit gets hard all the time. Shit gets damn near catastrophic a lot of the time, but I stay in there. It's me facing those things. It's me stepping back and being like, okay, if the shit messily hits the fan, I did the best I could with the resources I have. And that makes all the difference in the world, because at some point you'll look back and you'll look to see that what's written there is what you wrote. You are the author of this personal narrative. There will be the times when the circumstances didn't become the author. The circumstances were just that. They were the things that you continued to write through. And it's hard to appreciate the value of that, but that's the meaning-making aspect. These are the things that I chose, I committed to, and I followed the consequences through to the finish. The finish being when you decided, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore. That was the end of the end of that for you. Like, I can't tell you when to get off the shitty relationship bus. I can't tell you when to get off the I hate my job bus. I can't tell you when to stop being lonely and, try a relationship that might be shitty. That might end up being just as shitty as the last one, but with a little more knowledge, because you took the time to be honest with yourself about the way this last one worked. I can't tell you that, but I tell you, I went through all the different shit, and a lot of it I wish I had been more courageous about, but I can't. One thing to say about trauma is that in order to recover from trauma, you got to be able to forgive yourself, past self, for doing the best you could in circumstances in which you had little knowledge, or you had the knowledge you had then with the skill you did then. So forgive yourself, and basically don't criticize and punish your current self for doing the best you could with what you had back then. That's the main thing. It's just, other than that, I could tell you, literally my whole framework, my whole inner architect system, like what I teach my clients, is just a list of mistakes that I've made and clients have made, and I fed it to AI, and we developed frameworks over the years, and but none of it matters until you make those micro choices, over and over, and you keep coming back to the truth that you want to be the author of this shit. You want to have written your story when you look back, complete with the fuck-ups that were yours, which means you got to be gentle enough to allow yourself to be honest with yourself when you're looking at your fuck-ups. You can't go 0 to 100 and just blame yourself every time, because since you're the only person that's going to be there later on that private level when you're doing that life review or doing that year in review like we're about to do, you don't shit down your own throat, so to speak. Oh, graphic, right? My wife shared this thing with me. I gotta digress because I don't so much. Anyway, sarcasm font. My wife came across this quote that said, "I'd rather shit in my hands and clap twice." I can't find a context to use that, but it's poetic. It's powerful. Anyway, when you're working with me, and I hope you will, I'm not gonna tell you shit you don't know, but I will hold you accountable for what the fuck you do know. And I'm not gonna be judging or Like I said, my client was like, "You angry at me?" I'm like, "No, I've been through too much shit to be like sitting around like an idiot judging people. I don't have any judge left in me. Anything that I could possibly judge someone about, no, I don't have any judge left in me. It's fried. So that's not my job. I don't have any magical solutions. Not my job. I studied, I went and studied psychiatry, and that didn't help me. I was just on the way to being a psychiatrist with a bunch of issues, and a lot of scientific defenses I could use. That didn't give me any peace. I went and studied hypnosis. Like one of the best decisions I made, 2012-ish. So, 13 years I've been using a lot of hypnosis to help my clients, but there's no answer in hypnosis. The only thing hypnosis does is provide me with some tools that I hand to you in a context where you're more receptive to them. You let them in because it's like, interesting story. And then shit changes, That doesn't mean I'm handing you a shortcut. I'm just, I'm basically handing you access to your tools. Hypnosis is about becoming more resourceful. So I say all this to say that, I know how I get people results, but I also know that it's not how you think it is. I do, however, get you results. So reach out. We'll get it done. We'll get it done. I mean, I got hundreds of people that you can talk to who